Yeah, okay, here you go. Here's
so much to say about Carlin. Let's do it.
Okay, here's 30 seconds of George Carlin. Here we go.
Okay.
You know you can stick it. Well, why do we always assume everyone knows where they can stick it? Suppose you don't know. Suppose you're a new guy. You have absolutely no idea where to stick it. I think there ought to be a government booklet entitled Where to Stick It. But I believe there is a government booklet like that. They sent it to you on April 15th.
Classic George Carlin. What do you think?
Okay, I will tell you, I know what the title is, and let's see if I'm right. I'm going to guess.
Okay.
This is how much of a George Carlin fan I am. That is off of his HBO special. I wanted to say it was Back in Town.
Yep.
And the bit is called Free Floating Hostility.
Maybe on the album it is. For the YouTube title, it's called Everyday Expressions, and in parentheses, that don't make sense. So, yes, you got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Well, he was going into, because that was his thing. He was going into expressions like, piece of cake, expressions like, take the cake. Where do you take a cake? Where's the other effing cake?
He had another one. I'll see if I can find it. It was lock him up and throw away the key. Let's see. And then,
that's the one. It's all.
No,
That's
one will fucking kill you.
This is some cussing on here,
This is
everybody.
really stupid.
Here we go.
Where are you going to throw the key? Right out in front of jail?
Here you go.
Lock him up and throw away the key. This is really stupid. Where are you going to throw the key? Right out in front of jail? His friends will find it. How far can you throw a key? 50, 60 feet the most. Even if you lay it flat on its side like that and you scale it, what do you get? An extra 10 feet tops. This is a stupid idea. Needs to be completely rethought.
Classic. He takes the everyday things, objects, words, behaviors, and he points out the absurdity. I love it. He's the funniest educator. He's like you take a university class every time I sit through one of his bits.
I think George Carlin and a lot of people use that for not even that necessarily was just a comedian. He was just a modern day philosopher. That was his thing about comedy. He was so outside the box with his humor. I mean, he just not only he made fun of sayings and expressions, he got you to think and got you to see things from a perspective that maybe you have that perspective, but even if you don't know you have that perspective, it's like he reminds you of that, and you go, yeah, I thought that, but then he takes it to another level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Points it out, makes you say makes you realize what you're actually saying and doing, and then when you're laughing, when you think about it, you're laughing at your own behavior and your own participation in the ridiculous world we live in, which is really a comedy stage for George Carlin.
It's the irony. That's what good comedy is. Irony, and it's the absurdity of a reflection on human behavior. That's what Carlin was famous for doing.
Yeah, I'm impressed by this also, that he took on every part of the society, all the nuts and bolts, every cog, every gear turning, every key, everything that had to do with getting society to work and operate. He took it all apart, broke it apart, blew it up. You got to see the schematics, see it from the inside out. And he could make a joke out of anything, a car tire, a stop sign, saying please and thank you.
Well, I would say that if we had a Mount Rushmore of comedians, he definitely would be on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, agreed. I think that.
I know he'd be. I'd have to think about who the other three would be. I think Rodney would be one of them too.
Yeah. I picked out the ones on the list for tonight. I think that's a good starting place for anyone to go on that, the Hall of Fame or of the greats. And these are the ones that we, as they say, we stand on their shoulders when we perform. When we have an audience, we're able to do and say the things we do in many ways, it's appreciated more and understood more and accepted more because, and to a greater extent, because of people like George Carlin. And also, I was thinking Joan Rivers too. I didn't have a chance to look at any of hers for the show, but she was a really fantastic comedian too.
I just watched a thing on her on Netflix. She is like George Carlin's sister, I would say, because she's does a lot of the absurd behavior humor, the cynical perspective, and it's funny. And she, in some ways, I mean, I'm not comparing who's funny or whatever, but she's as good as Carlin because I didn't see as many bits quite as he had because, see, with Carlin, when I first started watching comedians on HBO back in about 2000, gosh, this must have been 2001, because I remember his first HBO special that I watched, Carlin. I watched him a little bit here and there in the 90s, and I was familiar with him, but I didn't really watch him. And the first time I saw George on HBO is when I saw his bit. It was called Complaints and Grievances, and it was right after 9/11, and he was making the joke about how we should get, fat guys who drink beer and eat bratwurst to fart in tunnels to go after Bin Laden.
That sounds like
9/11 is horrible, but we have to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room, and we have to talk about it. And he was able to make the painful situation funny, and then he did. He was supposed to do, and I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast a lot too. He's a great comedian. I met him at the Comedy Store. But anyway, he was supposed to do a bit about how he likes destruction and death, because he can do some very dark stuff, but that's Carlin's style. But they had to take some of the stuff out that he was going to do on that special. But if you look it up, he says, I like when there's hurricanes, tornadoes, and da-da-da-da-da, and a lot of people dying, and like the things he was saying, I mean, it was dark, but it was just from Carlin's perspective. But if you listen to, I saw him in 2004 at a casino, one of the casinos. Can't remember where it was. It might have actually been a Trump casino, believe it or not.
Yeah, probably, no doubt. Trump probably has a casino in every town.
I was listening to him, and he was doing that bit because it was a few years after 9/11, but he kind of had a little bit of. He admitted at that point, shortly after that routine, that he had a drug problem and he got sober, and because he kind of lost it, he said he felt bad because he was cussing at an audience member, and he said, "I can't be doing this, I can't."
I don't know anything about that part of it. We're talking about George Carlin said that he had an addiction issue or addicted to something.
Well, he had it over years. He kind of got over it, and then he just got into kind of like smoking pot a lot. And the pot wasn't so bad, but then he said, when he would do that, he would drink, and then he was taking pills with the drinking, and he said, I had to get off of it. And then he died a few years shortly after that.
Yeah, this is in... Well, the one that's posted here from that album that you cited correctly, Back in Town, it's posted at 2014. I don't know when that album came out, but I'm going to open it up and look.
That one came out in the late 90s. I think it was 1997, if I'm not mistaken. I remember looking at the year because in that year he was talking about the baby boom phenomenon, and he says he was going this thing about the boomers and. They went from counting grams on drugs, now they're counting fat grams,
Yeah.
And then, in the Life Worth Losing bit, where he talked about suicide a lot, I mean, it was dark, but he did this thing about, how people kill themselves. But if you really listen to what he's saying, he said, it's an absurd idea to want to kill yourself. He's like, why would you want to, kill yourself and no, here's my dead corpse. This is what you fucking did to me,
Yeah. He's got a way of saying what is in front of you, and if you don't like it, then you put the thing down that you have in your hand that he's pointing out. It's kind of what he does, I think, his comedy.
Yeah, I'll admit it's probably not for everybody because I try to show people's comedy, and some loved it, and some hated it. I mean, because when he started off, he wasn't as dark and twisted with his humor, but then he kind of got in the rebellious stage in the 70s because a lot was going on with, about the Vietnam War, and it kind of started the hippie generation of comedy. But what's funny and what I love about George Carlin is I watched the evolution of Carlin, and a lot of my own behaviors are like him. Like, there's a part of me that's a conservative person, but then there's a part of me that's a real liberal. But he talks about how, it's getting really bad when the liberal colleges are the ones you got to watch what you say. Because I think there was a point where it was more like a platform to go to colleges for free speech, but the irony is it's kind of gone the other way. It's like, you can't say this because this is fat shaming, or you can't say this because this person might get offended. And it's the irony of it is, and which wanted to lead me to my next thing, is like, I used to think the churches were kind of a place where, you can't say that in church, but now I'm watching a lot of comedians, and I'm like, they can almost get away with more in church than they can at some of those places, because things have changed. There's been a change on what you can and can't say.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, what you can, because there are rules, and then there are the unspoken rules, and the unspoken rules there are some things you can and can't say, and that's kind of where George Carlin came into my awareness when I was a kid, because he had that, I think it was an HBO special, 7 words you're not allowed to say on TV.
Oh yeah, that was, and about how he went to the Supreme Court with that. I think, and if I'm not mistaken, was there a Supreme Court case on that?
I don't know. What else do you know on that? I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up, because I know he went to courts to fight that, because it was a lot of that going on, and that's why Lenny Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, he influenced Carlin a lot, and I think Lenny Bruce was a lot into law, right? Because he wanted to fight for to advocate free speech, and that's what, and you could do a whole argument on who's more into censoring, the right wing or the left wing of the spectrum, but I look at it from, speaking of wings, I don't know if I'd say bird's eye view, but I'm looking at it from a perspective of, it's the irony is the right wing and the left wing can be the same bird. It's like, let's not limit what people can say, but let's look at the motive of what they're saying and why they're saying it, whether or not it's good or bad. Obviously, Michael Richards calling people racial slurs, the Laugh Factory took it too far, right?
Oh, I was thinking about that tonight. Totally, absolutely, yes. Bad choice on his part.
If you look at it from a perspective of, how could have he gone away with handling that situation different? And you can make a gay joke, but if you're bashing on all gay people, that's not. In my case, I wouldn't do it. But I'm saying if you make a joke like, let's say I were to say, here's the joke about, gay guys, a lot of people are homophobic, they don't want a gay person hitting on them. But I always make a joke of, I'm so insecure sometimes, if a gay guy gives me a compliment, I might take that as a good thing,
Yes, I would. In fact, sometimes
I'm not bashing on people who are gay because I have gay friends. I'm just making the point that everybody has a little bit of everything. It's like you can't, and we can laugh at that because I'm not saying they're gross or disgusting. I'm just saying that, I'm not giving my religion about people should not be gay or whatever. I don't care what they do. But the point I'm making is I want a compliment. I don't care where.
Yeah. Tell me about it. And I feel sometimes a little disappointed if I have gone to, I guess I would call them gay hangout bars or whatever, because I as well have friends. Yeah, and I'm like, hey, how come I told my wife, how come nobody hit on me? I'm insulted. I'm going back. And
there you go. And you want to ask them if they're attractive, and then you want to find out if they're really attractive or not.
Yes, because I happen to feel that, why wouldn't any gay man want to get with me? And why am I not being hit on? Yeah, but that's the way I look at it too.
Get away with it, and when I do, I have a whole transgender rant, and I'm not putting trans people down. I'm saying, there are all these different names, and it's like, how do I know what to say to not offend somebody? Can I say this? Can I say that? Or I can't say this, or I can't say that. It's about the language. That's what the joke is. When I do those jokes, I'm making fun of the words and the language behind it, not the person's preference, not how the person is. And that's when I think you can be funny about it. As long as you're not mean
I happen to agree with you, and I acknowledge, as well as you probably, that there are some that happen to not agree with what you just said, and I would say to that, hey, to each their own. They would find their own audience. Obviously, maybe their comedy presented in the way that, say, it was mean intentionally. It was designed to be mean. It was designed to insult in a hurtful way. Fine, I don't have a problem with that either, because I think sometimes you got to be mean to some people. I mean, that's how they won World War II, right? They had to be mean to a whole group of people for about 4 or 8 or 10 years.
Right.
And that's that's what war is.
Internment camps were going too far. Although this is something you could make a joke about it, but it's like dropping the atomic bomb wasn't so bad, but internment camps were bad. It's like wiping over 100,000 people off the face of the earth wasn't such a bad thing, but putting them in camps, that's bad. It's like
yeah, you could really do a lot with it. There's a lot of mileage in that one. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of humor.
But how far do you make it? I mean, I think it's the motive of, we had to be mean to win a war, not because we wanted to kill people, but because you don't want anybody taking over the world. But
yeah. War is always right for comedy.
Well, and I'm not necessarily the historian expert. I know enough, but there's a lot I don't know. But what's right and wrong, and I'm not going to judge what's right and wrong. God will judge the universe, whatever you want to call it. That will be the judge of what's wrong and right. What I see as wrong and right is somebody doing something without a purpose behind it. So it's like, you can defend yourself, but if you're just going to hurt somebody, that's not right. And if you're just going to be up there and be a dickhead and be mean, that's not cool. But if you have a point behind what you're saying, and it's funny, by all means, if the audience likes it, they're the judge, of what's funny. But then again, it's an individual basis, too. Everybody sees things from a different perspective. Everybody.
Yeah, and let me go on a I don't want to call it a rant, because I don't even know if I'm good at that. But let me go up on a little bit right here and say something that I've been thinking about all day, anticipating how we might look at some of these various comics, and knowing that because I identify myself as a Christian comedian, you identify yourself as a Christian in the sense of, I am a Christian mainly because I was raised as a Christian. And maybe if I was raised by some...
Is that your gender identity, Christian comedian? Is that your...
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I told somebody the other day, because I'm a Christian, that makes me black automatically. Yeah, because number one, because you know that Obama's black and he's Jesus. He's like Jesus. But the thing is... Well, in
a lot of ways, he was. The fact that Obama was very much, whether you agree with him or not, to me that's irrelevant. He was, I would say him and Reagan were the best as far as having eloquent speaking. I'm not even looking at their politics, but they were very, very persuasive in their speech.
Variety is needed. It's key.
In all honesty, my favorite Christian comedians is...
Yeah, do you have any in particular?
Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. My all-time. He was fantastic. Just like Chris is telling that group of people, and he rarely talked in the Bible. It's rarely just him and one-on-one. If it is, he could even be comical then. But he told that group of people, you're telling your brother to cast a speck of dust out of his eye.
Well,
and you have a telephone pole or a beam sticking out of your own eye.
Yeah, you have phones in, right?
Yeah. And that's the truth. It's like shall the blind lead the blind? Shall they both not fall in the ditch? Yes, of course. So this goes to...
It's okay if we take it from the approach that we're all sinners and we're trying to lift each other up. That's fine. I mean, you can be honest about somebody. I had this one dude who's like, you're sinning because you're having premarital sex. And I'm going, with myself, does that really count? No, joke. But
unless you're looking at a computer screen.
I'm not going to go into specifics, but I had this friend who was like, that's what a sin is. And it's not what he was saying, but it was how he said it. And this guy he would be like going to the bars and like girls and like he'd be like fondling them and all this shit. You know what I mean? And,
oh, I know it. I know those. I've tried to do that myself. Wasn't really good at it, but I'm really good at funneling myself afterwards.
I follow my own friends, right?
That worked all the time to me.
It's okay for somebody to tell me that's a sin. I know I'm a sinner. We're all sinners.
Yeah,
but it's like the way he was saying it, I'm laughing at him because I'm going, who are you to say I'm so bad? I just was making the point that everybody's committed adultery. Everybody's lusted. Everybody's broken some rule. I mean, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just the human behavior, you know?
But it is a whole lot easier to point the finger and go, you. Speaking of that you brought up a good topic. Let's listen a little bit to Rodney Dangerfield. This is, I want to play the intro, because, boy,
think about a joke. Maybe I shouldn't say it, because I bet it might be on here. But you did a lot.
Yeah, okay, let's do the Dangerfield first. The title of it is Rodney Dangerfield at the Top of His Game, 1980. And it is, I'm going to play the beginning, because, like you said, he comes out of the gate swinging, man. Rodney Dangerfield at the top of his game. Tonight Show, 1980.
Week got a rough shape, you know? I mean, last week I bought a whirlpool for my bath. So far, I lost 3 of my best ships. Okay, last week, nothing went right. I bought a waterbed. There were 2 Cuban guys swimming in it looking for Florida.
Oh, here's a good one. Listen to this. Listen to this one here.
I tell you, people are nuts, you know? My dentist, too, another beauty, my dentist, he found a new way to hide his bad breath. He holds up his arms.
Here's one. Listen to this. Listen to this one.
I tell you, I mean, there's wise guys. When I checked in a hotel, I asked the bellhop to handle my bag. He started to feel up my wife.
Oh, my God, that's so funny. That's so funny. I thought of you when he said that because his style of delivery remind me of him.
I'm familiar with a couple of those bits, but some of that stuff I probably heard it. I didn't totally recognize it. Can you actually send that to me? Because what is that from?
It's from the link I sent you earlier. Yeah, no, they're all good.
I mean, his jokes were just, he was so... and I say, well, I don't even want to say was, because to me they're always alive.
Yes.
He is a comic genius. Like,
oh, boy. Man.
I mean, classic jokes. Those are just like, I mean, one after another. Not
yes,
just
boom,
like,
boom, 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 boom.
Like, you got a joke, and then you got to wait. He just was on it all the time. I don't know. He really, I mean, he had a passion for his craft. I'm going to say that. He really knew what he was doing, and he had it, man.
He is the man. He's on the top 5 in my book. Yep.
He's definitely, the top 5. Like I said, on my Mount Rushmore comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I even love Eddie Murphy because.
We'll get to him next time.
Robin Williams, and that he did a lot. He's still alive, and he's making a comeback too. But he's so good with the character comedy. You know.
Yeah.
I love his stuff too. I mean, these are the guys that they got me into comedy, though. You know, it's just.
I'm trying to think. I think the ones that got me into comedy, funny, you should say that, Carlin, Dangerfield, and Robin Williams. And what's funny is I'm nothing like them in my delivery style, but they're the ones, well, maybe a little Carlin-esque in that, but more Christian than the Carlin style. I'm like a Carlin-esque delivery, but it's Christian.
He didn't like the fundamental of Christians. I think he believed in a lot of what Jesus preached. He just didn't like the religion.
Yeah. Definitely.
He didn't like the phony hypocrisy of people who, you know, like you say, they claim to be religious and they're just, you know. Yeah,
in other words, the same guy. In other words, he's against the guy that I see in the mirror every morning when I'm brushing my teeth. That guy, the hypocrite. And believe me, I know one when I see it, and I can tell I am one.
He wouldn't mind, probably not to speak for him, but we would get along with him because he knows we're intelligent about it. We're not just like, so these people who are like, oh, you're not a Christian because you don't, you know, you said poo-poo one time, you're not a Christian because you don't go to our church. You're not a Christian because I'm going, the beautiful thing about Christ is he says, come to me as you are. He didn't, and some people say, well, but you don't have to stay where you are. And I'm going, well, people are changing all the time anyway. And Christ wants us to be our best. That's not because he's beating us up and bringing us down. That's why Jesus went through what he went through. He was the one who was beaten. He went through that because he was showing us that we're all struggling, but we keep carrying our cross. We keep trying to do better. And that's the life we live. And that's what being a Christian is to me. And if everybody, I think if more people explain it in that perspective, you would have a lot less fighting and bickering back and forth, you know?
I think that's what Carlin is talking about. I've seen him sit and talk a lot of programs, and he just says it just like that. One time I actually think he said, just don't kill me about it. He might have actually said that.
Yeah, and see, some of the best atheists, like we were talking about this before, you know, Jesus, some of the atheists become Christians, but I said, well, Jesus even doubted God when he said, Father, why are you forsaking me? You know, why?
Yeah. And even the great prophets of the Bible doubted God all the time. The great ones of Old and New Testament, as they say.
Because they understood that being human is having doubt sometimes. And that doesn't make you bad. It's when you're like, and I even think people who deny God at times out of anger, they're calling out to God. It's just people who are like so cynical about it that they're just not open to any of it. That's what God didn't want. And like we're seeing people who are total hypocrites. That's why Jesus said, get away from you evil doers. It's people who are fake about it. It's about a relationship, and it's about having relationships with others around you. That's what God is. God's the love that we share with one another and lift each other up. You know, I mean, we're honest with each other. We don't, people think, well, you sugarcoat it, whatever. No, I'm not sugarcoating anything. I mean, Jesus was honest, and that's what I loved about him. But it wasn't a mean honesty. It was just like, if you look at a woman with lust, you're already committing the sin. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's not because you're a bad person or whatever.
Well,
it's just reality, you know?
Let me bring something up as we do with our acts, our comedy routines, as most comedians do, and I think it's the role of the comedian in society to do this. Ask questions like, I think Carlin would ask this. Sugarcoat, there's a good term. Sugarcoat what? Why? I mean...
Sugar on what? Right, there you are.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to sugarcoat what? Sugarcoat a baseball bat that you're going to use to hit over somebody's head?
Well, people tell me all the time I'm wishy-washy and I sugarcoat. I'm just trying to I'm trying to be diplomatic. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a jerk about things and say, well, you better believe my way or the highway. And I don't believe that approach. I mean, some people have that approach. Maybe it works for them, but for me...
Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for society either.
I take things with a grain of salt, and I try to get along with everybody I come in contact with. And I mean, I'll be honest with them, but if you're mean honest, I do it in the same way, like being honest with them, but not being mean about it. You know, and I think there's ways you can do that. You don't have to be a total jerk,
People know. People can, the audience knows, and that's the difference between, I think, like we're talking about this now, and I am trying to use the format of these types of programs that we're doing, the podcasting. The audience can tune into this if they want to get the dictionary explanation of it. But when they come to the show, they'll get a little explaining from me. Actually, they're going to get, if I'm on stage for 12 minutes, they're going to get 12 minutes of explanation from me because that's my act. But I've learned how to do it in a funny way so that it doesn't, well, I'm not saying I've learned how to do it in a funny way. I've learned how to treat the audience with respect, where I treat them as if they're as invited as I am. And I say, hey, I'm just going to have a conversation, talk about my observations, tell my jokes, and if the audience laughs, great. And if they don't, I'm not going to be angry at them and try to browbeat them into laughing. I'm just going to say, well, they must have thought it was funny. Yeah. But now listen to this one. But now here it is. I was thinking, because you brought this up, I want to say it again before we go to Robin Williams' Biblical History. And it's The point that we even have this need to say the word sugarcoat tells what kind of world that you and I live in, Brian. The world of our brand of our brand of religion taught us that if you're not telling someone that they're going to hell, you're sugarcoating it. And we think that way because that's how you and I were taught. But we were never taught growing up as kids. Not that anybody tried to hurt us growing up, but this is the way we were raised. That if you do not agree with this, you're going to hell. And as we got to be adults, we didn't agree with that. But now we always feel like we have to qualify it so that the people that we're talking to, I do too, don't think, oh, well, you're sugarcoating it. Because in their minds, I already know when I'm talking to 99% of the Christians that I meet on the internet, not the ones in real life until I get to know them. Most of them on the internet are all about, well, you didn't follow the Bible in my way, so you're going to hell. And that's exactly what it is.
That's where I'm going. Nobody's to say. Number one, nobody's died and gone there. Number two, yeah, do not judge or you will be judged. Number three, who's saying they're not going? Not that I would wish that on them, but it's really presumptuous to say that. You can believe whatever you want.
Yeah,
and I'm not for banning free speech. But I've had problems with people who've done this with children, because I think that is child abuse. If you're going to tell a child.
That's why I say, hey, that's why I always say, I do Christian comedy, it's not for kids. But let's look at, and that's the other thing about clean comedy. There seems to be, and I'm not saying it is with everybody, because I know there's a comedian that identifies himself as a Christian comedian. He's really good too. His name is John Fugelsang, and he's been on a lot of different programs.
I love that. You gotta say that again. Can you say that again?
John Fugelsang, like all lang sang. John Fugelsang. So if you're listening, John, you can send me your check now, since I did a commercial for you. But I don't know him, but I've seen him on TV and the internet. He's pretty good. But I wouldn't say that he's my style comedian in that he's funny all the time. But I do enjoy him in that I like his comedy. Not all jokes to me are funny, but the comedians that I enjoy, I usually get something out of them. They stimulate my mind. They provoke me to think. And I've been watching Sam Kinison, some of his sketches as we were looking at this today, from earlier in the 80s and I think maybe the 90s. And he was very funny, but I never got into the screaming. That part of me, the part of me is like, I'm not really into the screaming part. But when I saw him in the movies, hilarious.
I was a little bit into his character, so that's what he did. And I did like that he did that. That's just kind of what his character did. No, and I appreciate that he does it and has the talent. It's just that that never was my style of being. I loved when he did that, but it was funny. He a little overdid it, though. I mean, there are times where it's like, it's good, but you could have, It's time to find something. No, he was good. No, he was really good. Let me play some Robin Williams here. I'm going to cut right to the clip where he's talking about Jesus and Mary and Joseph. Here it goes. Here it is, Robin Williams. I know that one from his Broadway special. This is it right here. This is the one. Okay, Robin Williams, Biblical History. Here we go. That's a good one. Yeah.
Night that Mary said to Joe, I'm pregnant. And Joe went, Holy Mother of God. And she went, you're right. Oh, Jesus Christ. What a great name, Joe. I love you, Joe. Wait, hold on a minute, Mary. Hold on a minute. So I'm the stepfather of God's kid? Yeah. So I can't discipline him. I can't go, you're done wrong, because the kid will look at me and say, you're not my real dad. What are you doing, Mary? How did it happen? Oh, it's immaculate, Joe. Oh, it better be, Mary. It better be immaculate. I'm sorry I'm transforming Joe into Ralph Cramden.
That's what it is.
It seemed to be kind of appropriate because up to that point, all the names in the Bible are very Jewish. You have Noah, Moses, Zebedee, and then you get Mary and Joe. We're just a hyphenate away from Mary Jean and Joe Bob. We could have had Jim Bob, the son of God. Praise to him, Jim Bob. He who finds us stuff and gets me a job. Jim Bob. And here's the other drill. Jesus was an only child because thank God.
Oh my goodness. This is a good one here too. His brother.
That's a tough gig. Come on, Jerry, we're going to the beach. Oh, great, Mom. Yeah, Jesus is going to walk on the water, feed everybody, heal them, and get a whole bunch of disciples. I'll sit there with a rash and sand in my ass. Great day for me. He ends up in a bar at the age of 30 going, yeah, I'm Jerry Christ. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, I healed somebody. Here's Bob. Come on, boy, heal. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, my brother. Yeah, Jesus, he's a carpenter. I'm a plumber. You do the math.
He's hilarious. He's the master.
Well, see, and I don't find, and I love that bit. I don't find it at all, you know, and I can see why some persons might not like that, but I think it's so innocent. I don't think it's bashing on God at all. It's really...
I guarantee you know who else isn't bothered by it? I guarantee you 100%. The Lord.
You know, and I was thinking maybe God would be, maybe wouldn't, but there's a part of me that thinks my side that's not paranoid and worried. I think God has a sense of humor about things.
Yeah.
He has to.
I mean, why?
I don't think they say don't mock God, but it's like, I think mocking God would be like putting God down. He's not putting God down at all. He's just doing it from a perspective of...
He's telling it in a funny way.
Yeah, it's
like, hey, if you were him, if you were these people, that's how you would be acting. He's just bringing it out the way it is in our time.
It's true, because, you know, it's like, I've heard a pastor talk a lot about this. He said that, you know, Christians were confused about, how do I explain this? Confused about, like, he was saying that the disciples even were, confused, and they didn't really, they knew who Jesus was, but they didn't really know. It didn't click with them till like, wow, this guy's really about some far out stuff, you know?
Yep. That's the point of the story, too. That's the point of the story, just what you said. You just kind of summed up that part of it. I was talking to a friend of mine one day, several people, not just one friend, and I was saying how that one of the ideas that I have found in the Bible, the stories of the Bible, is how all the characters that are God's prophets and servants and disciples are all flawed horribly and like regular people. And I said, all these disciples of the Lord in the Bible, they were always arguing with each other, and they were probably just driving the Lord mad. And he just finally, many times, told them, look, this is why at the end, when he was about to die and he was about to give his life, he said, now I'm going to go and I'm going to go pray. I'm going to go pray over here, and you guys go pray over there. And it's like, it's almost like, to me, I get comedy out of that. Right at the point of his death, he's still saying, you guys, get away from me. I can't go through this with you guys around me. In my sense of that Bible story, it's a point that's meant to be taken seriously. I also think there's a lot of humor in that because it's human behavior. And a friend of mine said, no, the disciples weren't sinful. They were holy. And I said, no, they were regular people. They were sinful.
Well, I've even heard that, if I'm not mistaken, some of them even were, I don't want to say they were devil worshippers, but they were really against Christ at first. Like, I think it was, and some pastor I talked to said that, like, I don't know which one it was, and I should know more about what I'm talking about, but you probably know this better than I do.
Maybe.
Weren't even some of them, like, questioning God? They were just really, like, well, Paul the Apostle, I know, said he was chief of sinners, and he was like, oh, I constantly struggle with sin. They all did. And
Book of Romans.
Was a tax collector, and I don't know the exact ins and outs of it, literally ins and outs, because they probably were doing sexual stuff. I mean,
speaking of adultery,
they were like Paul the Apostle, I believe, right? You know this better than I do, but I think he said I'm chief of sinners. Like, yeah, I'm like,
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he said I'm the chiefest of sinners. Right here, sinner number one, right here.
People go, well, you're giving an excuse, and I'm not giving an excuse to sin. I'm just being for real. So people can't say sugarcoating because I'm being honest. Dude, they struggle with that crap. It doesn't mean they're bad or good. It was the reality of what's going on, and that's the point of Jesus coming to them, because they were fallen, and he was trying to help them. And, you know, that's what was going on.
Let's listen to this Michael Jr. Now, I want to play this real before we do it. It's called Michael Jr. Clean Christian Comedy, Laughing on Purpose. And he's really good. Let me go right to the one clip that he's doing, and then we'll. It's relevant. It's good. It's relevant to our time, and also it's funny. And here it is. And this one's called, I think, People That Are Oversaved. Oversaved. Let's hear what he has to say. Michael Jr., Christian Comedy.
You ever know somebody that was oversaved? You can't even have a regular conversation with them. You're just like, hey man, I'm thirsty. You thirsty? Thirsty for the Lord. Thirsty for the Lord? Hey, I lost my keys. Could you help me find my keys? You need the keys to the kingdom. I know as soon as I said oversaved, some of y'all had somebody in mind, but if you didn't, somebody had you in mind. A couple indicators to let you know you're oversaved. Just a couple indicators. If you don't mess around with computers because they got a cursor.
Well, you gotta send me the.
Yeah, he's really good. I say Michael Jr. is, in my estimation, I've encountered a lot of them on the internet. He's doing high quality Christian comedy in my book. He's one of the best.
That's perfect stuff because he's doing what you do. He's taking the behaviors, and it's the irony. It reminds me of this sketch where if Jesus were talking to the apostles, where they mouth in what the apostles are saying, and Jesus is going, they gave him like this Ned Flanders kind of voice, and Jesus says, you guys were really, I wish I could find the video, but he goes, you guys were really naughty last night. You were dancing a little too close. Have you seen that one?
I didn't. Is that what, Robin Williams or who?
No, it wasn't even a comedian. It's just this guy.
Oh.
You know, what people's idea of what Christ is. And they're getting this idea that he's watching every little thing we do. Like, oh, you danced with a girl and you stood a little too close. And, you know, you used the swear word 3 times last night. And a lot of it, I don't want to say, I love the Catholic Church. They're great. But when I went, they would every little thing they were like, into technicalities, like you have to do this, you can't say this at this time, you have to not eat meat this day, but you can eat it this day, but you can't, you know, if you come up and receive communion, you gotta be able to do like a jiu-jitsu move, and it's like, oh, come on, you gotta do the this and that, and the da-da-da-da-da, and you gotta kneel this stand, you gotta kneel this way, and you can't stand that way, or I'm going, oh, come on.
Right. Hey, the main reason I like the Catholic Church is because I can get, and I go to church, the Catholic Church up the street from my house, the Immaculate Conception Church, because they get you out of there. They're like when you take your car to the dealer to get it worked on. It's a lot better than if you take it to the Joe's shop up the street. And I always make the joke that I like the Catholic Church because they're like the dealership. They're like the brand name dealership, right? Because they got the Pope that goes all the way back to Peter or whoever. But I like because they get you in and out of the church service in about 45 minutes. And the priest will talk, read out of his book or whatever. He writes his sermon out or whatever for 10 or 15 minutes. But a lot of the other churches, man, they'll keep you for 2-3 hours.
I go to work with my mom, and it's called St. Joseph the Worker, and it's an awesome church.
Yeah,
they're so bad.
I know it.
Like, I'm talking about the nun days, because I went to one, and this lady basically told me I was probably going to go to hell. Which,
I was nice with that lady. Let you know.
She what? What's that?
I said that was nice of that lady to let you know.
Oh, come on, a dancer. I got to give her that much. I mean, it's like, honestly, she probably was going to say that, but I'm thinking, you know, I don't think this is what God, like you were giving me the analogy, I don't know if there's an analogy. You gave me the example that you were like a dog, like my dog.
Yes, how we love our own dogs.
You know, but you might spank your kid when they're a little bad, but it's just you know, you do it and you move on. You don't, you know, rub your nose in their poo every 5 seconds. You know, you did this, you did this.
You just have to look at it as if, well, if I mean as they say, the general sense. I look at it like, look, and my mom told me this when I was a kid. She said, the same way you love this dog, that's the way God loves you. Now, I don't remember all of the stuff I was taught as a kid. A lot of it I forgot because I just not into it, but I never forgot that. It made sense to me. If God would make a dog or a fly or whatever, and the God would also make me, what makes me think, and I think the Lord even said this, if God cares for if the Father, Heavenly Father cares for the birds of the air, should he not care more for you? And
yeah, I know that in the book of Matthew, it talks about don't worry about anything. And he doesn't want us to worry about this stuff. That's
and that's the point, yes, and that's a better way of looking at it for me is to go, oh, Creator, okay, Father, oh, cares for the children. Cares for the children doesn't mean that if they're bad, you throw them and mow them over with a lawnmower. Jeez, man. I know that sounds horrible, but man,